They're excited. Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Yesterday is in theaters this Friday, which is nearly tomorrow. That's a great sentence. Directed by Danny Boyle and written by Richard Curtis, the film following a struggling singer-songwriter who, after a freak bus accident during a mysterious global blackout, wakes up to discover that the Beatles have never existed. Guys, this film is absolutely delightful. Obviously, the music's pretty good, but it's a lot more than that. You walk out feeling so good, which is why I, for one, am super excited to talk to our next guests, folks, from the new movie Yesterday. Director Danny Boyle, writer Richard Curtis, and star Himesh Patel are in the building. How about that? Are you guys excited? Because I am, and it sounds like... You hear that? They are as well. We're all very excited. We're going to get started in just a second. But first, I believe we have the trailer for the film. So let's go ahead and run that clip. Ladies and gentlemen, please make a ridiculous amount of noise. I've got Mr. Danny Boyle, Himesh Patel, and Richard Curtis right here on this stage. Come on. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Yeah, look at that, right? That's nice. It's very nice. Thank you so much for being here. I said it backstage. I'll say it again. Congratulations. I absolutely adore. I love this film. I had such a blast watching it. You should be very proud. You should.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? How you holding up? You're in the home stretch. Comes out this Friday. Been a roller coaster ride. We're all doing all right. How's New York treating you?
Well, we like each other, which is a plus.
That's always good.
I've done these things where you're with the two people in the world you most hate. So it's great to be with two actual friends.
Let's go deeper. Who hated each other? No, I'm kidding. I don't want to get into that. We're not going to do that.
He'll tell you. No. If you keep pressing, he'll tell you.
Fantastic. Good to know. Himesh, I just saw you. We were talking briefly about this. You just played live on Kimmel. That must have been a trip, man. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was really, really trippy, really. It's just one of those things that kind of just happens. Like, we rehearsed in the daytime, and then I went back to the hotel, and then I went back, and then I just did it. But it was really cool to actually sing Yesterday with a string quartet. They were amazing. Those are the kind of musicians where they just kind of show up on the day. They just read the music, and they just create beautiful music, and they were amazing, yeah. That was a real privilege.
Well, I'm really excited. I feel like your life in particular has been filled with kind of surreal, crazy moments for the past, I don't know, a couple of months, year maybe or so. So we'll get into all that. I want to start at the beginning, though. Danny, Richard, the two of you together, you're such wonderful collaborators. I can feel both sensibilities. One never outpowers the other. They work together in perfect harmony, which is crazy, because if you'd said to me years ago, the guy that wrote Four Weddings and a Funeral and the guy that directed Trainspotting are going to make a movie together, I wouldn't have known what that looked like.
No, look, the movies are suspiciously similar. They're just about a group of friends.
Yeah.
My friends like weddings, his friends like heroin. But otherwise, it's wafer thin distinction between the two.
When did you guys start collaborating together and working together? How did you know this was going to be such a great fit? How did it all start?
Well, we did this opening ceremony at the Olympics in London in 2012, and we had this sequence with Rowan Atkinson in it playing Mr. Bean. And Richard said, "Ooh, if you're working with Rowan, you'll need my help." And so we all got on famously well, and it was very good. And then we sort of signed off, and we just used to contact each other. And then I was writing to him about something, and I remember writing at the bottom of the email, you know, if you've ever got anything, don't forget me. You know, it was, I didn't mean it. It was like just being polite. And then by return came this script. And I thought, oh my God, it's Richard Curtis. I'll have to read it. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I hope if the film's half as good, it's, you know, as that feeling you have when you first read something, then, you know, people will have a lovely time watching it, you know.
My favorite part of that story is Academy Award winner Danny Boyle saying, "Please remember me. Please don't forget me. Please think of me."
Oh, yeah,
that never goes away, no matter what you achieve.
No.
You never stop.
And it's a big factor in this film because, in a way, he suffers from imposter syndrome. And we talked about that. We all suffer from it all the time.
That's what I want to know. We hear that all the time on this stage, that everybody in your field, no matter how successful or a little bit, it's something that goes quite common.
Yeah, that curtain behind you, you always fear that somebody's going to come through there and say, stop this, and just denounce you as being a rogue and a kind of imposter, yeah?
Yeah, when you work in movies, you see the first cut. that's when you know you're an imposter. You see the film you wrote and you think that's the third worst film of all time.
That's amazing. So even at this point, with the body of work that you've amassed individually, you still find yourself feeling that way on occasion. You still
also in life,
creeps up.
In life,
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody who's a father, you think you're an imposter. You've got no idea how to do the job.
Right.
You fail so regularly. So I think it a lot of the time. And even on the movie, I used to say to Danny, "Don't worry, this is a very funny scene," and then I'd think, this isn't a funny scene at all. What are we going to do? I'm going to have to add some swearing to try and make it funny.
Himesh, did you struggle with any of that as you got this role and now we're playing songs from this particular catalog and performing? And how did you feel? Is that something you faced as well?
There was a bit of that going on throughout, really. Kind of as soon as I got the role.
The second it happened.
Well, a few days later, we found ourselves, me and Danny met with Daniel Pemberton, our composer, and we were just going through the songs, and Danny had made this list of the songs that were going to be in the movie based on the current draft. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm nowhere near as good at guitar and piano as they maybe think I might be, or they've seen the audition.
Yeah.
Maybe I fooled them. But I was really well supported throughout, really. You know, Danny and Richard were never patronizing. They were never pressuring in any way. Nor were the
Behind the scenes, we were terrified.
Yeah, of course you were.
Why didn't we
You're
go?
still scared.
Why didn't we go for Hugh Grant again? we were thinking.
He's always there if you need him.
Or Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah. Either of them would have been
Great
better.
musician.
Decidedly different film. Probably would have loved that one as well. But then let me ask you that. What was it that you guys saw? I mean, you were like, it's got to be him. He's the guy. Because you're putting all your chips on him at this point. I mean, here you are. You've got a song featuring this song catalog, this music. You've got to know in your heart of hearts, we made the right call. Was there something? Do you remember the moment where you go, it's got to be Himesh?
Yeah, he came in, and we'd been seeing a lot of guys, and they were very impressive. In fact, if anything, they were probably better guitarists than him. In fact, some of them were better singers than him, actually. But the songs didn't... No, it's true.
Come on, Danny.
No, it's true.
Take it easy. He's young.
They can cut that
It's his
bit
first
out.
film. Come on.
But the songs didn't come alive. You always felt that you were hearing a karaoke version, a sing-along version, which is great. They're great songs. Or you were hearing a kind of like an improvement on the Beatles. You know, the real ones who could really play were like trying to improve the classics. And he played, and it was very soulful straight away. And I remember he played yesterday, and feeling that, and then he went straight into back in the USSR, and I got up and started dancing, which is not how a director is meant to behave during an audition process. So I sort of knew, as I was making a fool of myself dancing, I thought, this has got to be him. There must be a reason for this. Yeah.
There was a vibe. There was a feel. There was an intangible thing that you can't teach, no matter how much technical ability you have. Yeah. Well, that comes across. It makes perfect sense. That adds up. Seems you know what you're doing. Let me ask you this: how far along did you guys allow yourselves to get on this project before you actually secured the rights? Did you have them from the beginning, or did you have? I mean, you got to have the idea, and then you've got to get the rights to the music. Did you tell yourselves, let's not get ahead of ourselves until we know we can make this thing?
I think there was probably a treatment stage.
Yeah.
I think probably when I'd got it to what was going to happen, we first submitted it to actually a friend of ours at Apple, and I think he said, "This looks as though it'll be fine." If it had been a film about a serial killer who's very fond of the Beatles and puts on a different track every time he kills, the Beatles might have said, perhaps not.
No
but
thanks.
it looked as though it would be fine from then on.
Feeling about
Yeah.
it. When the studios put the money up front and they make an investment like this, is it harder for you guys creatively to take risks and to push things? Because now they feel like they've already put so much up front for, we bought all these songs, we can't mess this up, we can't take risks, we can't do that. Get Hugh Grant in there, get Ed Sheeran in the lead, do stuff like that. Do they start pressuring you, or do they go, we trust you guys, go ahead?
Oh, well, we got Ed Sheeran in the lead. Didn't we?
Well, yeah, no,
in one of the leads, anyway. He's not the lead, but no, they do make a big investment. They're very expensive, the Beatles songs, and so you feel like they have a right to question your decisions, which they do, you know, and that's good because they're holding you to account, really, and you've got to kind of question yourself about whether the decisions you've made are good ones for the film. So they question you all the way along. A very good studio, Universal. Donna Langley runs it. She puts you on the spot, and rightly so she should. And then you kind of, but they'll back you if you can justify what you're doing. So yeah.
I remember you at one point saying in a very early meeting, "Let's make this for as little money as we can," which is the opposite of what most directors would say. But I think Danny wanted to keep it at as it were, a price tag where we would have as much, latitude and freedom as we could get.
I heard.
That's why we hired Himesh.
There we go. Himesh.
This one's going really well for me.
Yeah, this is.
No.
I was going to say, in the scope of talks that you've done,
you should have charged more. I think there was another $50 in the budget for you.
I want to heap a little praise your way, because I'd found out too, another thing that you had to do aside from perform some of the most iconic songs of all time is you had to do it live on set. Is that right? Then you decided you wanted to do the recordings live.
Yeah, we decided pretty early on that was the best route to take, because these songs are incredible pieces of art, as Jack says, and they deserve the weight of a live performance, and you can tell when you watch something whether it's been overdubbed or kind of corrected in post, as it were, and that wouldn't have worked for this. And I preferred doing it that way. I think, if for ease of editing or any other reason we would have done it in post, I think I would have felt a little uncomfortable on set, knowing that the emotion that you give to these moments that we create and then are captured on camera, to then have to try and recreate that later would have been really difficult, and it wouldn't have felt truthful. So I think each moment that you see, is me singing live, playing piano or guitar live, and it just lands in a certain way, I think.
That's kind of beautiful, man. For the neurotic in me would have thought, oh man, I better not screw this up. There's a lot of people that are here that I've got, it's all hinges on me nailing this take of the song. But the way you described the living, breathing piece of art and kind of the energy in the room, was that your first time performing like that? Certainly in some of those crowds of that size, it had to be your first time.
100%, yeah, no. And it was actually my first time in a long time that I'd really performed like that in front of anyone, really. I sung when I was a kid, and then I lost my confidence because my voice broke when I was a teenager, and puberty's not kind to some people. And then I'd been rediscovering my voice in the last few years, and then this comes along, and it was a challenge, like even doing the tape and and then sending that off, and my agent being like, I didn't know you could sing. And I was kind of like, well, I guess. So it was these moments of vulnerability that kind of escalated to the point of then, yes, doing this sequence that we have in the movie in Galston-on-Sea, which is where Jack's from. He does this big homecoming gig on top of the Pier Hotel, and we put out a crowd call. And what was it, 6,428? Is that the figure? 6,428 people showed up on the day, and there they were on the beach, and I had to sing to that many people. And it was a momentous occasion for the production, but personally as well, it felt like a real moment.
I think they were disappointed by the size of our repertoire. When you come along for a concert and you hear the same song 27 times, that's a disappointment. I mean, I've been to Leonard Cohen's concert, so I know what it's like hearing the same song 27 times in a row. But it was tricky.
Do you have a warm up? Do you have anything, or no? We got to get this track. We've got certain hours of daylight.
Well, we kind of had a warm up because Danny was particularly amazing at talking to 6,000 people from the top of. I thought you were amazing that day, really, and galvanizing people like that. It's
trying to get them to bounce up and down. We sort of do it as a punk rock version of Help, and they get them, so they and you see them bounce. It's like proper bouncing. It's like, whoa, yeah, respect.
Where'd you learn to address 6,000 people like that? Is that something you picked up working on the ceremonies, or is that?
Yes, you do. You do end up addressing a lot of people like that. Yeah. So yeah, and they were very. It was the largest. It's the largest crowd call of extras ever in the United Kingdom. And it would be the largest crowd call worldwide if it wasn't for Gandhi's funeral in Richard Attenborough's Gandhi film, which 1 million people turned up for. So we can't compete with that.
It's hard to put up numbers to compete with Gandhi's funeral. That's Yeah. I'm really excited. We're going to go to audience for some questions in a second, but one of the things that I was really excited to ask you about, Danny, was I heard that in preparation for the film, you wrote several letters. If I'm getting this right, I don't know if I read this correctly. You wrote a letter to Ringo, you wrote a letter to Sir Paul, and to the estates, essentially. You wrote a letter to Yoko, everybody. And I'm just curious, was it handwritten? Was it an email? I want to know more about the details of this letter writing. You got to sit down and write a letter to Sir Paul. How does it start? What does your letter look like? How'd you write the letter?
It was typed.
It was typed, okay.
And then signed.
Signed in an envelope through proper post.
I think it was probably scanned then and sent as an email.
Okay.
And then scanned as an email.
An interesting way to go about it.
So it wasn't sealed with wax or anything like that and hand delivered by.
Send a raven.
We have moved on in England, you know. It's not. It doesn't go by horse. Yeah.
It was more about getting in touch with Sir Paul than it was a reflection of how I believe things are done across the pond. Did you? I mean, do you commonly do you have an exchange with Sir Paul that often that you I'm just writing a letter to one of the Beatles? I feel like that'd be a thing. I'd feel a lot of weight. I'm writing a letter to a Beatle. I've got to nail this. I got to get this just right.
Spelling and grammar.
Precisely.
Very big pressure. That's the pressure. Yeah. That you get that wrong. No, and we got lovely replies. Yeah. Really lovely replies. So that was very sweet, you know. And it's typical of them. You know, when so many films are about biopics now, you know, and life stories, the film that they approved of going forward was one that imagined them being erased from history entirely. You know, it's typical of their sense of humor. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, we've got. Do we have any questions in the room? We got a bunch. All right, so let's go ahead and start doing some of those. We've got a microphone out there. We'll take our first question right over here.
Hi guys, I have a question for Richard. First of all, thank you for all your work. Thank you for writing one of my all-time favorite movies, which is About Time. And now, when in those moments of self-doubt, when you're writing something and you're like, "Oh my God, this is bullshit. Nobody's gonna like this." How do you overcome that, and how do you move forward with your work?
Well, two answers to that. I think one of the big things if you're a writer is to accentuate the positive. Whenever I talk to young writers, I say, if I write 10 pages in a day and a third of one page is all right, that's a great day. Whereas I think most people, they write and they say, oh, there's that one good bit, but the rest of it's rubbish. So you've got to just pay attention to the time you succeed. And the other thing actually is to do with love. All my films have been edited by my girlfriend, Emma, and I actually look to her to confirm it. In fact, I had a funny one on this film. Do you remember? I handed in the film, it's like homework, to Emma just before Christmas. And it was so wonderful. She came back and said, oh, look, it's marvelous. I'm so happy. Everything's good. And then on January the 3rd, she said, look, about the film. I said, what? She said, I was really lying. I just wanted to have a good Christmas. I didn't want you to be unhappy. But there's a lot more work to be done. Yeah.
What a way! Well, that's kind of an amazing gift, though, in a way, isn't it? I'm going to give you peace of mind this holiday season. I'm going to let you relax for a little bit.
I would have been tortured. But yeah, I think you've got to work with people you trust, and actually you get your confirmation back from them. In fact. You're welcome.
Do you guys ever feel when you have established such a classic body of work as both of you have, and you have this to look back on, and this is how people perceive my work and me as a creative person, do you ever feel obligated to write to those expectations? This is what people expect from my movie. I'm going to try to do this. Or I'm Danny Boyle. They know at some point I'm going to have a surreal sequence. Let me find where I put that sequence. Like, do you feel beholden to the expectations set by your previous work, or do you try to subvert those expectations?
I kind of try to change, and because I feel I'm very concerned, as well as imposter syndrome. I'm worried about repeat syndrome. I kind of feel like it's very dangerous to think you know what you're doing. I think you should always, and it's interesting to address you should always not know what you're doing and have to work it out, you know, as you go along. Because otherwise you're kind of like, you've done it, really, and it's stale. It'll go stale very, very quickly. So I always feel like you should be trying to work it out, and you try and create a working atmosphere with a group of people who will help you solve what it is you're trying to do. And that means that they're involved in the creativity as well. You know, so it feels like they're not just technicians hired for the day. who are interchangeable. There's someone who are going to create something unique and, you know, individual.
Do I have more? I got a couple more. Let's do another question from the room.
Just point out that wonderful T-shirt. Does it say "Love is the Resistance"? Yeah. That's
Yes,
so
does.
brilliant. What a thing to be wearing.
That's Muse, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Muse, isn't it?
That's Muse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Muse?
Is it a Muse reference? No. We were just talking about Muse, that's why.
That's a line in a Muse song.
Yeah.
Love is the resistance. I won't say.
Yeah.
Go on.
See why Danny just wasn't cast. Yeah.
And he was behind the camera. Yeah. That's why. I think you have the next question. Let's go for it. You have the microphone.
Hi, everyone. Wonderful. I saw the trailer. It's really wonderful. I would like to ask, were there any Beatles songs that you guys wanted to put in the song but didn't make the cut, or any songs that you enjoyed the most that made it into the movie?
Well, we kept changing some of them till the end, particularly the ones, as it were, which Himesh isn't directly singing, even though it's always his version. It was pretty locked. It was pretty locked. I mean, there are 160 Beatles songs I wanted to have in the movie that didn't make it. But, you know, what you do is you find the right one for the bit of drama. So this scene with Help is, I always knew Help was going to be in at the moment when he was at his saddest. And, you know, there's a songwriting competition with Ed Sheeran at some point in the movie. And Ed plays a slightly dodgy song called Penguins. And then I just tried to think what Beatles song has the most perfect first 4 bars, and I picked The Long and Winding Road because it's so sublime. So I could have used any of them, but you tended to pick the one that fitted the story at that moment.
Yeah. You guys had a total, I think I saw 20 that you had, right? And I think 17 or 18 made the final cut. Is that about right? Did you have did you record all 20 and then find the place, or was it as needed? We know where they're going to go, so we're going to do it.
I don't know, it's funny really. I mean, recording feels like an odd way to put it because we just kind of captured them in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, there were ones like Nowhere Man, which kind of is now half said, half sung, and ones like Maxwell Silver Hammer that just kind of comes, you get one line of it. Yeah. So there's little moments like that. But otherwise, yeah, they were kind of set in place, weren't they?
I mean, there's so many of them that you think you don't. So it's like Get Back. We never used Get Back. Helter Skelter.
We did, yeah.
I Am the Walrus. Come Together. It's just like, it's extraordinary. If they were releasing songs now, there'd be one every fortnight.
This is a pretty common fact. Everybody knows this. It blows my mind every single time. They did everything they did before they were 30. It just bums me out and blows my mind. Yeah. Half the room was just like,
You're okay.
I've got 18 months to rectify that.
You've got a very busy 18 months. Yeah, wow.
How many I got left? I got a couple left. Let's do another one. Come on down.
Hi. There are other movies out right now that kind of cover this time period of music, Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man. I was wondering how it came about that. Did you email each other and say 2019 is the year that we're going to honor this type of music, or how did it come about that this was the year that these wonderful movies are coming out?
It is one of the great mysteries that you suddenly get a cluster of films. I remember my friend Anthony Minghella, who had like the best idea he'd ever had about a film, which is an amazing film if you haven't seen it, called Truly, Madly, Deeply, which is about a woman whose husband dies, and then he's there in the house when she comes home one day. And he went to the studio and said, I've had this amazing idea about a ghost. And they said, yeah, we've got one of those, which was the movie Ghost, which happened at the same time. I mean, so I think that actually in this case, we were quick, but I think Rocket Man I know the Bohemian Rhapsody took them 10 years to make, and Rocket Man, I think 12. You know, it may be the Mamma Mia helped, in fact. No, seriously, I think it may be that the success of that movie with using a catalogue of songs maybe was the key to unlocking people feeling confident about it.
How long did it take you guys to make this one? If you front to back, how long do you think it took you to make this movie?
Well, actually, pretty quick. I would have started writing it about April 17, so I think it's a quick one. Yeah.
Can't get it real fast. Thomas, I have one more. I've got at least one more. Fantastic. Let's go ahead. Come on down with the microphone.
This question is both for Richard and for Danny. What type of genre is your favorite to direct, and what type of genre is your favorite to write for or to create?
It's easier for me to answer that, isn't it? Because all my films are exactly the same. Wait a second, that's not true. I did once write a film about malaria. But you know, I'm quite interested in the idea of painters. I often wonder, why does Chagall always paint goats flying over houses? Couldn't he see there's lots of other stuff around? So I think you write what's in your, for a writer, you write what's in your, what the things that matter to you. There's never been a gun in any movie I've done, and yet there are people who only make movies about guns. So I think from the writer's point of view, you go for your heart. I mean, Danny's career's got much more, you know, variety, obviously.
Yeah, I'm still trying to working my way, and this is obviously a good step towards it. I'm still working myself towards the confidence to do a proper musical on film, because I think that's the holy grail for any director worth his or her salt, is you've got to be able to do an original musical on camera. It's very, very tough, I think. That's the toughest task of all. To make it believe that you, sir, would know Burst Into Song for no apparent reason, and for everybody to be cool with that and think, yeah, that's great. What's he singing about? Do it anyway.
I can't sing.
Danny, around what time did that become in your head, like the white whale or the brass ring, is I've got to be able to do that? Did you know, like when you were making Train Spotting, were you like, this is step one on a long road to my musical movie? Like,
well, we made a kids movie called Millions, which we should have made as a musical, and we chickened out. We lost the confidence. Confidence is a big part of it, and I think, especially for a musical, I think you've got to have a lot of confidence to actually, because it's such a strange thing for people to burst into song, and yet if you get it right, everybody wants your characters to burst into song if you can. It's the ultimate trip, in a way, really. So, yeah, I've been working really since Cabaret came out, which is 1974, really. Ever since seeing Cabaret, you think that's the ultimate, really, if you think about that movie, yeah.
That's fantastic. I hate to let you go because I'm having a really good time with you, but we're out of time. I got to wrap things up. Thank you so much for making time to come hang out with us today. Congratulations on this film. I'm going to remind everybody it's in theaters Friday. It is fantastic. It is such the music's obviously really good, but there's so much more going on. The story is wonderful. You feel wonderful watching it. Himesh is fantastic in it. Everybody did a wonderful job. It's a good film. Yesterday is this weekend. Thank you guys for being an amazing audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While you're doing that, louder and keep going for Danny Boyle, Richard Curtis, and Himesh Patel right here. Please, come on.